Continues to figure on America's priority watch list as one of the 36 nations that do not give adequate protection to the USA's intellectual property rights. Now, the Office of the United States Trade Representative released its special 301 report on the state of intellectual property protection over the weekend. The report alleges that there has been no sufficient improvement in India's intellectual property framework over the past 1 year. That's not all. The report also criticizes India's implementations of its Patent Act as restrictive. Rituparna Bhuyan joins us now. Ritu, what else does the report highlight vis-a-vis India?
This is not the first time that India has been kept on the USTR's 301 watch list, along with China and 10 other countries. The report was released in the weekend, and in that report, the USTR's office has said that there is lack of sufficient measurable improvements to the IP framework. The IPR regime has negatively impacted US IPR right holders and difficult for innovators in India to receive and maintain patents. There are also specific issues that the USTR's report has raised. For example, on counterfeit medicines, the report claims that around 20% of the medicines which are present in India are actually sold in India are actually counterfeit, and along with China, India is a major source of counterfeit medicines. In addition to that, issues have also been raised on Section 3D of the Patents Act, which is of course not new. In every report of the USTR regarding 301, this issue has been raised, and it's specifically the USTR's report says that the Section 3D has led to obstacle as far as innovators to come to India and apply for patents. Then again, the USTR's report has also raised issues related to IP-intensive products from medical devices sector, from pharmaceutical sector, as well as solar energy and capital goods, saying that India imposes a high customs duty on such IP-intensive products. Last but not the least, the report also talks about lack of protection of regulatory tests in India, and the copyright royalty board, which was in India, has not been functioning, and as a result there is not adequate protection for IPR as well as copyright holders in the country. So what does it mean as far as India is concerned? Well, India does not recognize the special 301 report because it believes that it's a unilateral action. However, remember that we have a very hawkish trade administration in Washington at the moment. Hence, we'll have to wait and see what kind of action the USTR's office or Mr. Trump's office takes based on the recommendations and the observations made in the special 301 report. With that, it's back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those details, Rituparna. Now, the Reserve Bank of India has eased norms for foreign investors to invest in government bonds. The central bank has withdrawn the investment cap that barred FPIs from investing in Indian bonds with less than a 3-year maturity. In fact, the Reserve Bank has also given a nod for housing finance companies to access external commercial borrowings. Bank stocks as well as housing finance companies rallied in trade post the move by the central bank. Lata Venkatesh is here with all the details. Lata?
Yes, there were two sets of rules that the Reserve Bank issued late last week. One is that it eased the rules governing investment by foreign funds in Indian government securities, which include central government and state government. The first is that until now, foreign funds were allowed to invest only in government paper which had more than 3 years left to be redeemed, what you call residual maturity of 3 years. Now they are saying that foreign funds can invest in anything. I mean, even if there is only 1 month left to mature, they can, which means basically T-bills. But the point is there is no restriction, time limit restriction. And the other restriction that has gone off is in corporate bonds. They had to be a minimum residual maturity of 3 years. Now they have reduced that to 1 year. Separately, there are also stock-wise restrictions. A foreign investor collectively could invest only 20% in one particular security. Now that limit has been raised to 30%, and individual FPIs can invest only up to 10% in one paper. These are about the restrictions. Mainly they have been eased, and that 3-year residual maturity going off is one of the biggest steps, which is seen as attracting a lot of foreign investors. Now, I just want to caution that there was a reason why that 3-year limit was used. It was to prevent hot money in government securities. You know, at the time of the taper tantrum, a rule like this made it very easy for foreign funds to get out. This actually came at that time, so people would be a little worried. There is also a set of people who are a little worried that maybe the rules have been eased too much. But the important point is, as of now, this is expected to increase FII investment or at least improve the sentiment. Therefore, on Wednesday, you should expect government bond yields to fall by at least 5 basis points or so. And more importantly, corporate bonds could fall even by 25 basis points in some buckets. So that will largely be seen as positive, and you could see the positive impact on banking stocks, even stocks like Yes Bank, which hold corporate paper. The second set of rules was on ECBs, that is external commercial borrowing, which is foreign loans. That window has now opened for housing finance companies, port trusts, and some other infrastructure companies. That again is positive for housing finance companies. They have to hedge it completely. So the cost may not be a big advantage, but it opens up another source of funds for housing finance companies, and therefore you saw these companies' stocks also rising in trade on Monday.
Every single village in India has access to electricity. That is the announcement coming in from Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday. This after a remote village called Lessing in Manipur became the last to get access to power. In April 2015, the government had identified over 19,600 villages which did not have access to power. And 3 years later, the government has said that the mission has been accomplished. The government considers a village as electrified if about 10% of the village has access to power. So this does not mean that every household in the country has electricity. In fact, according to the Power Ministry's data, just over 3 crore households still do not have access to power. The secretary at the Power Ministry, Ajay Kumar Bhalla, told CNBC TV18 that within the next 12 months, every household in the country will have access to power. Hear him out.
So one shouldn't be looking at it that this is a very difficult number. Even in these villages, I come back to the villages with a little bit of issue that there were a lot of difficulties in connecting some of the villages.
Sure.
These were, as I said, was not the numbers. Achievement is the difficulty under which these villages were connected. We are looking at Saubhagya scheme to be completed not only up to March 19, but we are trying to target it within December 18. So that in any case, and I mean, that is the stage if even one house is left unconnected, we'll have some time to connect to the remaining houses.
3.3 crore villages by December 2019.
That's a big target on my hand.
Did I get you right? This is 3.3 crore unelectrified villages. 18. You have December 18. 2019 as the date for that?
3.13.
Yes.
Yeah. Why shouldn't you be? Why should you be so this thing? As I said, these are 30 states. Large number of distribution companies, each company having many divisions and circles. Why should it be a problem for anyone?
No, I'm not saying. I was just, checking with you, confirming with you if that is the goal. It's extremely laudable, and of course, every citizen.
We are doing the internal.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yes, we are doing an internal target of completing it by December 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
And you can catch that entire conversation at 7 p.m. tonight only on CNBC TV18. While reports of a possible Flipkart-Walmart deal continues to make headlines, we caught up with Myntra Jabong CEO Anant Narayanan. While he didn't comment on the deal, he did tell us that as Myntra closes in on profitability, it will continue to invest in setting up offline stores, make acquisitions, and a big focus this year is building on Myntra's in-house artificial intelligence or AI capabilities. Take a look.
This is an area of core differentiation. If you take our overall engineering investments, about 30% of it will actually be in AI, deep learning, machine learning. As I think I've told you before, we have now set up a small office in Palo Alto, which actually has a bunch of machine vision work that's actually happening. We apply AI in almost everything that we actually do. The big chunks are in the front end. How do you personalize the store? I think on the brand side, how do you develop a brand with data and science as opposed to only art? And then in supply chain, how do you optimize logistics? So those are the 3 big chunks where we use it. So I'll just cover each of them for 5 to 10 seconds each. If you take the front end, personalization in fashion is very different from personalization in e-commerce in general. Most e-commerce companies use something called collaborative filtering, which is people who bought this also bought that, and therefore I recommend something for you. In fashion, if you bought something, hopefully you bought it off Myntra or Jabong, if you bought something, the question is, do you want the same thing recommended to you? The answer is probably not. So here we actually develop algorithms to say, how do you actually recommend how to complete a look? By the way, the impact of that is better conversion. So,
talk us through the numbers.
So, you can get between 20 and 30% improvement in conversion if you do personalization well, which actually is huge impact on overall profitability, on ROI, on everything, right? So that's one big chunk that we're investing in. The second big chunk that we're investing in, as I said, is in brands. So Moda Rapido, which is one of our private labels, is completely designed without designers, right? So it actually uses lots of data. Machine vision's gotten better. It can tell trends, and then we put it together in a fast supply chain, and in 45 days it's live. Now that, by the way, will change the way fashion gets designed and made globally.
We know that you launched that flagship store in Bangalore last year. Tell us how that is doing. What has that initial experience taught you? Are we looking for more offline retail movement?
So we have 3 different use cases in omnichannel that we're trying. The first is really for what we call brands that we actually either own in some fashion or are ours, right? Or we partner deeply with. So Mango, Esprit, Roadster would all fall in that bucket. Right? So Mango will have 20 stores, Esprit will have another 20 stores. Roadster, by the way, the first store that you asked about has been very successful. We're opening about 15 to 20 more.
Where?
Right?
In what parts?
All over actually, but we're still big cities. We're still doing metros for now, but we might actually experiment with something else. And that thesis is still there. It's not a sales-driven thing. It is a branding and marketing-driven with a lot of tech to make the experience seamless. The second use case, which we're going to start experimenting with this year, is should we actually do multi-brand stores in some form that will actually allow returns in some way, that will allow, we haven't started that yet, but we are actually thinking about how best to do it. We are making some of these long-term investments. You'll see a few acquisitions coming as well. So I think all of those are a good thing for us because we believe that long-term it's a differentiator.
So you brought up acquisitions, and that gave me a lead to one of the questions, which is, so acquisitions on the tech side, to acquire interesting technology, whether it's in AI or whether it's, in VR or even augmented reality to a certain extent, or is it fashion brands, other brands that have been doing well, or, niche verticals that you're looking to acquire?
Sure. I think tech investments that you brought up are interesting. We do it in a few different areas. So we recently acquired Whitworks, which is the Blink watch and so on, because there we believe wearables and fashion will be a good one. Likewise, by the way, we're actually doing a whole bunch of things around supply chain and logistics, around omnichannel. We're looking for small acquisitions. But those are really technology acquisitions and acqui-hires that we're doing. On the brand side, we're not acquiring brands, but we do have the Brand Accelerator program that you may be aware of, where we partner up deeply with brands, and we actually take some level of equity in them, which is growth linked, and we partner up deeply so that we can actually grow the brand in India. And I believe that that actually will be another substantial portion of how we grow brands out of India, in India, to be large brands.
Is there an amount allocated to this?
Yeah. So I think we want the Brand Accelerator to be about 5% of our overall platform in terms of revenue. And we're putting as much capital as is needed in order to get there.
To the latest updates from poll-bound Karnataka, with less than 2 weeks to go before the elections, the war of words between campaigning parties has escalated. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah attacked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for not fulfilling promises made during the 2014 polls. In a series of tweets, he took on the government on its failure to curb black money, its failure to deposit 15 lakh rupees in every Indian's bank account, and for the inconvenience people faced during the demonetization exercise. His tweets also pulled up the government for failing to provide employment, for the rising prices of petrol and diesel, and for its failure in ridding the machinery of corruption. Meanwhile, in an interview to PTI, H.D. Kumaraswamy, the chief ministerial candidate of the JDS, sounded optimistic that his party would be king and not kingmaker. Meanwhile, the BJP's chief ministerial candidate Yediyurappa put his weight behind Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Few weeks after it completed its halfway tenure in Jammu and Kashmir, the BJP-PDP government undertook a major cabinet reshuffle today. BJP leader Kavinder Gupta has been sworn in as the new deputy chief minister, replacing Nirmal Singh, who has now been made the speaker of the Legislative Assembly. BJP has inducted 6 MLAs, including its state unit chief Sat Sharma, as cabinet ministers. PDP has inducted Pulwama MLA Mohammad Khalil and Sonwar MLA Mohammad Ashraf Mir as cabinet ministers.
6 MLAs. 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 6 MLAs.
Moving on to some international news, then North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is planning to invite foreign media and experts to witness the dismantling of his nation's nuclear test site. CNBC's Sherry Kang filed this report earlier. Take a look.
That's right, but I think at this point we've got a lot of skeptics out there, Jumana, who are questioning Kim Jong-un's real intentions and what kind of result that we can get between the Trump-Kim summit that President Trump says that is happening in 3 to 4 weeks from now. So certainly now we're at a point where we're going to shift our focus away from the inter-Korean summit on Friday, and a lot is riding on Trump's shoulders as well, because we've got, yes, like I said, skeptics who are questioning what Kim Jong-un really wants to achieve here. And perhaps with China now getting involved in the process, sending the foreign minister to North Korea later in the week. And we're seeing a lot of, busy diplomacy among relevant countries. And perhaps this familiar pattern that we've seen before in the previous rounds of nuclear negotiations with North Korea, perhaps that's really what's supporting all these skepticism out there. But I think in the meantime, we're going to be focusing on what the Trump administration has to say or has to do in terms of preparing for this summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. But I think in the meantime, we can expect the South Korean president playing that mediator role, and certainly he's trying to, and he, as in South Korean President Moon Jae-in, trying to get the relevant countries involved in the process, perhaps to ease some of the tension ease some of the tension in the lead up to the Trump-Kim Jong-un summit at this point. Guys?
And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Reporter's Diary. Many thanks for watching, but up next is Young Turks. Stay tuned to CNBC TV18.